Hello and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review the Beths 2020 album, Jump Rope Gazers. It's pretty good, still high quality, but with a slightly different sound from their first album. This is the track listing, and these are the tracks I added to my playlist, 8 out of 10, so most of them here. This album is a lot slower and more alternative than their first album, which is nice, but I don't think it comes together quite as well. The opening couple of tracks are all pretty upbeat, which is a good way to start it off, and then the album slowly gets into the more alt stuff, starting with the title track, number 3. Aside from 8th track, Mars the God of War, most of the back half tracks are slower, sort of rock ballad-ish things. It's still a little pop, but these songs are generally not as radio-friendly as their other album, their first album. Overall, the flow is pretty decent, but not incredible. As I mentioned, the first few tracks are quicker, and then it slows down a bit, so that kind of gives it a bit of an interesting place to go. And none of these slow songs are so slow that they cause the album to lose momentum, although a couple of these slightly faster tracks here and there do help out a lot. The 9th track, You Are a Beam of Light, should really be the final track in my opinion. And there are definitely a few tracks here and there that are a bit more boring, which isn't great. But overall, the album has a decent amount of variety, so having a few not great songs kind of ends up working out fine. As a whole, the music quality is still pretty high. The style is a bit more varied than before, which is good. And enough of the songs here are good enough that the album is pretty good overall. There were no singles that I could find that were released before the album, at least here in the US, and none of these songs were particularly popular over here in the US. Some of them were probably popular in New Zealand, their native country. My favorite here is probably the opening track, I'm Not Getting Excited. It's pretty good, although Dying to Believe and Mars the God of War were also pretty good. Those three are probably the more upbeat ones that I preferred. I rank this album second out of the 2 Beths albums I've heard so far underneath their debut album. I kind of just like their debut a bit better. The 2 albums are they're pretty close in quality and not too far apart in their sound. Jump Rope Gazers is definitely a bit slower, and I generally prefer faster stuff. And I think that Future Me Hates Me comes together a bit better with all of these sort of faster rock songs. Jump Rope Gazers is definitely a little bit more interesting, though. And I like to see artists shift a bit between albums, so I still like this one. I just prefer their debut a bit more. The quality is basically the same between the 2, so you could easily prefer Jump Rope to Future Me with no trouble. They're basically the same quality, I just prefer the quicker stuff. Additionally, this album does not take my top spot from 2020. That stays with the Strokes' 2020 album, The New Abnormal, which is really great, almost perfect album. The Strokes really take this one due to their 20 plus years of experience. It helps them make an incredible album to beat out a lot of the sort of really good but not really great stuff like Jump Rope Gazers, which, doesn't have the 2 decades of experience behind it. So yeah, the Strokes keep this one, although it is a little bit competitive. Thank you for watching. Next up is the Beatles' 1965 album, Help. This is an interesting one, right in their transition period from their early 60s pop work to their late 60s psychedelic and modern sort of pop rock sound stuff, so stay tuned for that, and as always, stay minty.